CNN legal analyst Paul Callan joins me from New York with more. What do you think the chances of Prince Andrew's legal team are in court tomorrow? They're basically saying Giuffre signed a deal in 2009 promising not to pursue anyone connected with Epstein. What do you think?
They actually have a very strong argument, a compelling argument, that they're going to assert on behalf of Prince Andrew. And an agreement like this, a settlement agreement like this, is not at all unusual. As a matter of fact, in most civil cases, when they are settled, the defendant, the person who's being sued, is always afraid that there'll be other suits that will be coming out of the same incident. So if they can, they negotiate an agreement like this that, hey, this is the end of the case if we're going to pay you this amount of money. They paid her $500,000 apparently back in 2009, I believe it was, when the settlement agreement was made.
Okay, so this is the exact language. I'm going to read it to our viewers. Giuffre signed the deal in which he agreed to remise, release, acquit, satisfy, and forever discharge the said second parties and any other person or entity who could have been included as a potential defendant from all and all manner of action and actions of Virginia Roberts, that was her name at the time, including state or federal cause and causes of action. Does that include civil suits?
Oh, yes, that would most definitely. And that is really aimed at civil suits because you cannot contract away criminal charges. That would be obstruction of justice if you did that. So this is intended to apply to civil cases. But here's the argument that her attorneys are going to make. They're going to say that the case against Prince Andrew is different than the case against Epstein. And accordingly, it could not have appropriately been brought as part of this settlement agreement, and hence it's not covered. That's what the lawyers will be arguing about from a technical standpoint. Now, of course, her attorneys will be Prince Andrew's attorneys will be saying, hey, that's absurd. He could have been named as a co-defendant in the case, just as Maxwell was named as a co-defendant in the case.
Sure. What if Ghislaine Maxwell, who was found guilty on 5 of 6 charges against her, decides, for instance, to talk about anything involving Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre? Could that affect Giuffre's civil suit against Prince Andrew despite the 2009 settlement that she signed?
I don't think it would affect Giuffre's civil suit. It would, of course, mean that he could be charged possibly with criminal charges, depending upon, of course, what Maxwell has to say. You know, there are statute of limitations issues here in this case, and there are also issues with respect to some of the sexual conduct that's alleged, that the prince is alleged to have engaged in, was in London, and the laws are different in England than they are in the United States with respect to statutes of limitations and so forth.
Sure. And now we've been following, obviously, this case, and Giuffre's team has asked Prince Andrew's team to provide proof that he was suffering from some sort of medical condition that prevented him from sweating. You'll remember in a BBC interview, he said Giuffre's claims are implausible and improbable because she claimed he was sweating profusely in a nightclub, and he said, I couldn't sweat. If he cannot produce evidence and proof that he was, in fact, suffering from this rare and unusual medical condition, can any of that have an impact on any civil suit that Giuffre's team brings against Prince Andrew?
Well, if the judge in this case looks at this general release and says, you know something, it's not going to bar Prince Andrew from being sued by Giuffre, if that's the case, then this sweating issue actually is going to become a huge issue in the case, and it'll be very, very important because she says he was sweating profusely when this sexual encounter occurred, and of course he says that medically he can't sweat. So that's why Giuffre's attorneys they want his medical records. They want to see proof of this bizarre condition that would prevent him from sweating.
Lastly, if the judge agrees with Prince Andrew's team and rules that this 2009 settlement, in fact, shields Prince Andrew from any civil suit brought by Virginia Giuffre, is that the end of it for him? Is he in the clear?
It's the end of it from the standpoint of a civil action for money damages. However, criminal liability might still lie because depending upon where she says the sexual misconduct, sexual abuse occurred, the statute of limitations might still be alive. And it really depends upon the details of that and what the law was in the jurisdiction at that time. So yeah, he may still have criminal liability. He's not out of the woods yet, even if the judge rules in favor on this issue.